Hey guys, it's Dasha. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be answering the questions from the intimidating TBR tag. I figured that this tag was not really going around like recently, but I thought it was kind of interesting and it gave me a chance to look through my own TBR in a kind of different light because there's a lot of books that I look at that I really want to read, and then some of them my eyes just completely glaze over every time I see them on my shelves. So this is forcing me to look at some of those, feel them, and remind myself that I still own these. So with that being said, all the books that I'm going to answer these questions with are books that I own. It makes sense to me. My TBR in general, like on Goodreads, is like 500 books long, so I'm not going to answer it with that. I don't think that makes sense. I'm going to go with my physical TBR. So let's just get right into the first question. The first question is, what book have you been unable to finish? And say it with me, class. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I've been reading this for almost a year. I started it in August of 2020. It's just embarrassing at this point. It's taken me a while to finish because it intimidates me, but also because I've just been not in the mood and it's just, I need to just finish it and I'm planning on it, I promise. This is a classic tale of revenge and I've been really enjoying what I've read so far out of it. I'm just terrible at picking it back up. The next question is, what book have you yet to read because you haven't had the time? And I'm gonna go with the Book of S by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. This has been making the rounds on TikTok, weirdly enough. I didn't think it would be a book that they'd like, but it's basically a very interactive book. There's all sorts of postcards. There is a napkin. There's all sorts of weird little interactive elements. This book is written in by two people who borrowed it from the library and they write back and forth to each other in an attempt to solve the mystery of the author of The Ship of Theseus, V.M. Straka. The reason I say I haven't had the time for this book is because of these interactive elements and because of this element of the two people writing back and forth to each other. I feel like it's just gonna prolong the process of reading this book because you're gonna have to read it like 2-3 times through to get a full idea of what's happening. There's no way you could read it all in one shot and accurately get all the information out of it. So there's a million different ways people read this and suggest you to read it, and there's a million different sequences of reading. You could go through the whole Ship of Theseus and then go back and read all of the annotations, or you can read a piece of like the Ship of Theseus and then read the annotations for that like chapter or part. But then there's also the inserts, and it's just a very chaotic reading process. Some people also say because of the different timelines. So if you can see, there's different colors of the ink on the side, and that is because the people who read this book, who are communicating through the book, read it more than once together. So there's those different timelines, and then there's the actual book itself that contains like messages that you want to be able to know what it's about. So this book clearly requires a huge time commitment that I've just not been able to do yet. But now that school is done, hopefully I'll be able to dedicate maybe like a month to just reading through it. I don't know. It scares the shit out of me because of that, because I'm like, what if I miss something? What if I don't get the full experience? What if the story is actually shit after all the time I will have sunk into it? The next question is, what is a book you have not read yet? Because it is a sequel. So I have two answers for this one. The first is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This is the second book in the Poppy War trilogy, which is an adult fantasy about kind of a retelling of the Sino-Japanese War, but with magic and shamanism, and it is a fantastic like military fantasy, but I have been super intimidated to go into the second book. I have it on ebook and I've just been kind of putting it off. Part of it is because I want to reread the first book. I want to get a physical copy so I can annotate it and relive everything and then go into the second and third book, but part of me is just like, just go into it. You can reread it at another time. Like, you don't have to wait till you have them. But it's also intimidating because a lot of people like cry and it's really emotional, and the whole series just makes people feel a lot of things. So that's been kind of scary. And the other one is The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy. I read 5th season last year and I was kind of very, I don't want to say ambivalent about it because it was clearly just a very incredibly written book, but I didn't feel a lot of the things that other people felt reading it. And so when I found the other two at the thrift store and I just picked them all up and I was like, perfect, I can finish the series now. Yeah, it's been sitting on my shelf since. And on top of that, several reviewers that I trust said that they actually did not like how the series continued on. The second book was nowhere near as strong as the first, and the third book was just really unsatisfying and just took these weird turns, and it's just scary. And on top of that, because I didn't completely fall head over heels for the first one, I'm not even sure I want to continue on with the series. So it's intimidating for that reason, because I'm like, do I want to sit here and spend my precious valuable time reading something I'm not even sure I want to continue. So this has just been staring at me for a long time. So the next question is a book that you haven't read yet because it is new, and for this the only one I could really think of was The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. This is an adult fantasy and it is set in this kind of alternate Venetian inspired city with like the masks and the opulence, and you're following these kind of underground players that are trying to pull off a con, but there's some politics at play. And I think the reason I just haven't gotten around to this is that I was excited for it, but then I heard no one talk about it, and it's kind of a double-edged sword because sometimes if people talk about books, they completely ruin it. See a further question. But sometimes when people don't talk about it, you're even more nervous to go into it because you truly don't know what to expect in terms of how other people react to it. So I have no idea what I'm gonna get with this one. I still want to read it. I think that it could be a very good underrated gem if I do happen to like it, but it's just been intimidating me because people haven't been speaking about it. The next question is a book you haven't read yet because you read a book by the same author and you didn't enjoy it, and I have a very obvious one for this one. It is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, the first book in the Crescent City series. So if y'all did not know, I am not a Sarah J. Maas person. I did not like A Court of Thorns and Roses when I read it last year, and this year I read Throne of Glass with Ray, and we both hated it. I will leave the wrap-up where I talk about it up here, but Ray did get me this as a gift. It was a housewarming present for her, bless her heart, and she did not know that she didn't like Sarah J. Maas either at that point, and I'm still willing to give this a shot because it is her first marketed adult series. So I'm hoping, and because it is a more recent one, that her writing will have evolved a little bit and improved because I don't like it. All I know about this is that it follows like an underworld part of a big city. It's like an urban fantasy, and you follow this like fallen angel and some werewolf. There's some serial killers. It's been scaring me because I don't know how I will feel about it. I know that I don't like Sarah J. Maas, but I'm always down for an adult fantasy series. So it's been staring at me, and of course I'm gonna read it because Ray got it for me as a gift, and I do want to experience it. I'm just so nervous now. Okay, the next question I have a few answers for. So it is a book you have not read yet because you have not been in the mood for it. And oh my god, everything I have, I'm just not, like, I'm a mood reader for sure, and I'm never in the mood for anything. Robert Harris's Fatherland. This is if the Axis had won World War II. It's basically just reimagining what the world would look like, and there's all sorts of conspiracies. Picked it up because it was cheap at the thrift store, and I wanted to read it at some point. Still haven't read it. Are we surprised? Same with The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I know this is a historical fiction set during World War II in German-occupied France, and I have had no desire to read this. I picked it up because it was also at the thrift store in really good condition. Actually, all of the ones I'm going to talk about were thrift store finds. Maybe it's a pattern. I pick them up because they're in like good condition and I want to read them, and then I'm never in the mood for them. So I'm gonna have to force myself to read them at some point. But yeah, I just haven't been in the mood for like historical fiction. I know this one is quite emotional, but I'm like, if I'm in the mood for that, I'll just pick up A Little Life. So I've just been completely avoiding this, and I've had it on my shelves for a while now, and I have not read it still. Same with these two. They intimidate me also because they're just fucking massive, but I have Stephen King's Under the Dome and 11/22/63. Forgot the title there for a second. Both of these, again, thrift store finds. This one is in exceptional condition, so I was like, yeah, let me pick that up. I want to read through Stephen King's backlist, but just neither of these have piqued my interest recently. This is an alternate history if JFK had not been killed in Dallas, and this is a apocalyptic dystopian where there's like a giant bubble that descends over a town and they have to figure out how to live with it. I actually started this one. I got 113 pages in, and then I've had no desire to pick it back up. The next question is, what is a book you haven't read yet because it's humongous? And I'm gonna go with House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. This is a horror that is, it doesn't look that intimidating, but it is like such a fucking hassle. So it's 600 pages plus. And yes, some of the pages look like this, but some of the pages also look like this and this horse shit. And I don't want to deal with that. And it's big, and I know it's gonna take me a lot of time, so I guess I could also go for the second question, but it's like, it's big too in surface, and it's just staring at me, and it intimidates the living heck out of me, and I'm scared of the size. There's another book I'm also scared of the size, but it's gonna go for a different question. So the size of this one really does scare me. The next question is, what is a book you have not read because it was a cover buy that turned out to have poor reviews? And I will say this one's not entirely cover by. There was like the synopsis interested me too, but like the cover definitely played a big part of it. I was like, I want this. And it's A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. After this came out, this got really poor reviews. There was some really problematic elements to this book that people did not like, and my interest for it waned. And then hearing people talk about it and the things that they were talking about, I was really worried that this might not be for me, so I've just been avoiding it. Is that the right thing to do? Maybe not. But like, I own it, and it's been just sitting there taunting me because of all the reviews, and I bought it because I love the cover and the premise, and I hadn't read Naomi Novik at that point, and I didn't know that like her writing style is kind of unique. And then yeah, the reviews started pouring in, and I was like, I fucked up. And the final question is, what is the most intimidating book in your TBR? And of course, I'm gonna have to go with War and Peace, because this thing is absolutely massive. It is horrific. I could kill a man with this. And it is so dense, and everyone that reads it is like, yeah, you need like a character chart, like a flow chart with all the characters and who they're related to and their names, and you're gonna need to take notes. And I'm just sitting here like, this seems like a lot of work for a book, and I'm scared. But like, I love classics, and I think I would really enjoy this. My mom read it when she was a kid. My mom grew up in the Soviet Union, so of course they had to read all the Russian classics, and she was like, yeah, I skipped all the war parts. I thought they were boring. And I'm like, perfect, I love war. I love reading about war. I really want to read about it. So like, I think I would like this, because there's war parts, and there's like family dynamics and romance and all this stuff. And yet, it has been on my shelf for like 4 years, and I still haven't touched it. Someone shame me into finally reading some of these, please. I beg of you, if you've read these and you think that I would really like them, or you think that I should give them a shot, even if they're intimidating, please let me know, because I've just been avoiding all of these with everything I have. My social media is linked down below. You guys can always come talk to me there. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.